Congratulations, everybody who has worked or is going to work in a game this week. This is the third week of our football championship series for 2018. Our theme is to pay attention to details. That includes mechanics, penalty enforcement. We've got about 18 plays to look at from the last two games that were televised in week 2 of the tournament. So let's start right now with play number 1. This was a play where intentional grounding was called, and correctly so. You can see we're snapping at the 25-yard line. Quarterback is clearly under duress and ditches the ball just before getting sacked. Now, the mechanic here is for the wing official or deep official, whoever is closest to the termination point of that pass, to come in and let the referee know there's nobody in the area before the referee drops a flag. This is a two-person mechanic that requires a secondary input before we throw it. We can see our wing official is moving downfield instead of directly at the referee stating, "I don't have anybody here." If he does have someone there, then he would point to the person who is in the area so that the referee knows that there is no intentional grounding.
Intentional grounding, offense. There was no receiver in the area of the pass. 5-yard penalty, also loss of down, third down.
On another note, this is an excellent example of a proper announcement. He gives the penalty, he gives the direction, offense, defense. He explains exactly what the call is, what the next down is, and the result of the play. So that was a perfect job of announcing a penalty. Play number 2 is a discussion about hurdling, and there was some question as to whether this was or was not, and it was not. And the reason it was not is because hurdling is defined as jumping with your knee or foot, or knees or feet, foremost over an opponent who's touching the ground with nothing more than his feet. In this case, the opponent is only touching the ground with his feet, so you cannot hurdle him. But this jump is a head-first jump. The head is the leading point of the runner's body, and not the foot or the knee, and that is why it is not considered hurdling. That's a correct no call. Play number 3 was defensive holding, called on player number 9, who's highlighted here. The engagement is square up and legal, and it looks like when the runner cuts off of that, these guys are still holding on to each other, and maybe 9 pulls him backwards to the ground, or maybe the blocker was holding on to him and 9 retaliated by pulling him to the ground.
Oh. Holding, number 9, 10-yard penalty, first down.
Either way that happened, we don't call holding on that unless it elevates to the level of a personal foul, which it in no way did. So what happens is we've got a play that looks very clean. We've got some action that's away from the play, and we get a call on the defense, which results in a 10-yard replay of down versus a third down and short of the line to gain. So understandably, the coach is going to be upset, which is then going to compound things as we move into play number 4, and you're going to see what happened there. So here we are. The coach calls a timeout because he's upset about that call, and you can see that he's coming onto the field. Now, if a coach is individually coming on the field to communicate with his team, that is one thing, and it can be assumed that that's occurring, but very quickly we can see that the team is going to the sideline, and the coach is heading out to midfield. Right here, we've got a problem. If we can't turn him around immediately, then that is an unsportsmanlike foul against the head coach, which is going to make him even more upset because it was a result of a bad call. But we still have to maintain our parameters and our borders on the field. So the coach is out here discussing his displeasure with the call and not getting a satisfactory answer, but he's still violating his position on the field. And when the referee came up to him, it was somewhat of a, "Hi, how you doing? That's the way it is, dismiss you." And the coach is really not satisfied with that. So at this point, we have an unsportsmanlike conduct on the head coach because we didn't immediately take control of that situation and take him back to the sideline. Now, to add insult to injury, as things like this tend to create, is once one mistake compounds into another mistake, it starts to compound into another mistake, and then we start to lose time. This whole event took about 4 minutes of our game time. If you subtract the 1 minute for what should have been a timeout, then really 3 minutes of wasted time. So the coach is still out here on the field. He's not getting the answer he wants. The referee blows the ready for play right now. Now, once the referee blows the ready for play with the coach out on the field, we've got another problem because players can't get the ball in play. So the referee signals, "Hey, get off the field." Now look at the side judge coming in from up top. "Hey, we've got a problem. Maybe the chains aren't set right. Maybe the coach is on the field. We got to get him off." Then the referee turns and chops the ball in play again with our side judge not in position. Our umpire backs out. Side judge doesn't know what to do. We got to shut this down. So the line of scrimmage guy shuts it down. Everything's messed up. We come back on, announce a timeout for Campbell High School, and then we go over and start a conversation. The coach explains, look, I didn't want a timeout. I just wanted an explanation. Well, really, it's kind of too late for that because we had compounding errors that led us to this point. Now, like I said earlier, we're into our 4th minute. Coach is over here explaining what goes on. If this had happened right away and the coach was explained as to what was happened or what had called, or had we corrected the call, none of this would have occurred. And then we come back after this, give him his timeout back, and he's really happy, gives a thumbs up. But this is not the way these situations need to be handled. They need to be handled right away, correctly, with the coach at the sideline if a conversation is necessary. All right, let's lighten up the subject with play number 5. This is just about head linesman's mechanics. Now, he's got the running back in this formation as far as his primary key. He stays exactly where he needs to stay, follows the play up, and is looking out of bounds to make sure that the player stays protected after the play. This is a really good job of head linesman mechanics. Play number 6 is just communicating with coaches, and in this case, this is an incorrect way to manage our communication. We got hands on again, hands on a third time, and then the coach says, well, I guess that's okay, let me put my hand on you. And this really looks buddy-buddy and not the message we want sent to the other sideline. So when we communicate with the coaches, we do it hands off, and when they communicate with us, it is also hands off. Play number 7 involves a punt and also first touching by the kicking team. So we have to remember what our rules are relating to first touching and the implications. It comes down here, the official rules that the ball touched the kicking team player at the 11-yard line. Play continues, the ball rolls to the 13 or 14, where it is then killed by the kicking team. Right after that, the wing official who ruled first touching is marking the ball at the 11. That would be true if the end of the play resulted in the ball being behind the 11, but because the ball ended up being beyond the 11, we would go to the 14-yard line where the kick was actually downed and not the spot of first touching. Play number 8, we're going to look at goal line mechanics. We deal with this all the time. You can see the ball is snapped at the 5-yard line. Our head linesman and our line judge need to go straight to the goal line, which they do in this case. They work their way back to the end of the run, and if there is any crashing or any locating of the ball that needs to be done, then they need to come straight in. Nice job by these guys on this play. Play number 9, offensive holding was called on the right guard, and we really want him to be bigger than this. So watch him here. You can see that his left hand gets on that shoulder, and there is some tugging and some slight restriction, but the play ends right behind that. I think the runner lost a yard, and in these situations, we just want to let that go. Had no impact on the play whatsoever. We can talk to that guard, make sure we clean up action after that. Play number 10 resulted in a disqualification, and the act was a kick to the head of a player who was on the ground. And yes, that did occur. It wasn't really a big event, but it was an event nonetheless. So what actually started all this was the quarterback who was being sacked got his hand in the defender 25 shirt and pulled him down and restricted him, would not let him off, and 25 pushed off of him, kind of to escape. So there's really nothing there because one caused it, the other retaliated, and neither one of those were big acts. But the actual kicking action is an action that we cannot let go. So there are certain things that end up in a disqualification regardless. And one of them is if you've got a player who's laying on the ground and somebody kicks him in the head intentionally, regardless of how hard, he's going to be disqualified. And the same goes for acts such as grabbing someone in the area where you don't want to be grabbed, or spitting on someone. Anytime anybody's trapped on the ground and any of those acts occur, it's going to be an automatic disqualification. Unfortunate in this standpoint because the quarterback really caused that original roughhousing, which you can see right there, and then 98 comes up and he wants to help his player up and he gets really mental for a second and he kicks the guy. And you can see because we allowed it to happen earlier in the game, the coach feels perfectly comfortable coming out to midfield and having these conversations. Wing officials need to prevent this from happening. If he gets out there, it's unsportsmanlike conduct, and the referee needs to walk him off of the field and make that announcement. Play number 11 is an incorrect mechanic by the field judge because he gets involved on a trapping call from an interception standpoint that really wasn't his best angle. This call belongs to the umpire and the head linesman primarily. Everybody else is really not going to have a good look at that. The field judge comes in and wipes this out as incomplete versus interception, and he and the back judge are in the absolute worst position to see this. So please mind your mechanics. And I'm not saying you can't reach into the other side of the field if you see a personal foul or a targeting or a UNR hit against a defenseless player away from the play. But on a play like this that involves a very detailed act that you cannot see from your angle, please do not get involved in this. This very much looks like an interception. I know that you can be fooled by an elbow that may look like the football, but this is a right-handed recovery when he turns, and it appears that he has it in his right hand the entire time. So this really does look like it was an interception and it was wiped out by the wrong guy. Play number 12, it's just an incorrect mechanic. It's a free kick. We have to preload these activities. Any ball that touches the goal line as a kick is dead as a touchback, as it is here. It looks like the referee gives the guy the go forward, and that hesitation allows him to come out. This should just be killed immediately for safety reasons as a touchback. Play number 13 is just a reminder that although we had some great goal line mechanics earlier, when we're in a reverse goal line mechanic, inside the 5, both wing officials need to retreat to the goal line and work the play forward from there. I also highlighted one of our ball boys who was inside the 10. We want our ball boys to be between the 10s and not anywhere near the goal line in these situations. So just a little bit of a reminder. Play number 14, this is a free kick. In another situation, you just have to be ready for the unusual. And in this case, we have a pass. You got to be ready for reverses, forward handing, backward handing. In this case, we have a pass from the 14-yard line and a catch or a touch that initiates at about the 14-yard line. So that's a lateral. So we just need somebody to signal that, and they continued on and refereed this play. This was a correct no call for illegal forward pass, and a nice job. Play number 15, offensive holding, was called on A77. I apologize, the play had already started before the cameras got back on it. A75 is suspect, but the head linesman, his key is A77 over there, so because he's the lead blocker after the running back gets it. So when you go back and look at the end zone view, you can see A77 is pretty clean. There's no restriction there. Even though we have a great announcement by the referee, this is incorrect call. And we want to make these bigger. We want to make sure we see all of the act all of the time before we get involved in calling offensive holding. Play 16 is another trap call that the umpire actually turns on this and gets this, and this is really, really tight. But we've got the right guy in the right position to make this call. It is a correct call. It looks like originally that this would be a catch and an interception, but the umpire waved it off as an incomplete pass, and you can see here that the ball does hit the ground. The right hand is sloppy on the ball. That is a great indication that there is no control. You can see that the ball is on the ground, so that is a correct call for incomplete pass from the correct position. Nice mechanic. Play 17 involves a play that's really close to the line to gain. So you can see that it's third down. So if they make it, they get a first. If they're short, it's going to be fourth and short, and then decision time. So the running back gets it. The officials spot the ball in what looks like a very accurate position. So once we have this situation, it's a tight game, still early in the game, we're going to pull for a measurement, especially since the line to gain was between the yard marks. So we're actually going to have to pull the chain to see if we've got it. So once we call the timeout, we all have to figure out exactly what our job is going to be. So let's start at the top with the side judge. The side judge grabs the down marker and moves it to the forward stake and places it on the ground. The head linesman will go to the clip, which is located on the back line, back edge, which you can see that he is doing currently. The line judge, all the way at the bottom, needs to go down and mark the 90-degree angle as to where the ball is, so that when the head linesman brings in the clip, he knows exactly where to put the chain, so it's at a 90-degree with the ball. The field judge, because we're outside of the hash marks, needs to go get a new ball just in case we are short, so we can leave that ball on the ground, place the new ball at the inbound line where the chains are, and we can start in a very accurate position. The umpire and the referee at this point need to be clearing the teams so that the chains can come through properly. As we go back to live action, you can see that the field judge and the line judge have a little bit of confusion about what their jobs are. The field judge is clearing players instead of going to get a new ball, and the line judge never really figures out what he's doing until late. Now, we bring in the chains. Once the umpire takes control of that stake, it needs to be perfectly straight up and down. The reason it needs to be perfectly straight up and down is because, number one, we want to see if there's any kinks, and number two, because we don't want the swivel to be pointing the wrong way, the swivel that holds the chain at the bottom. So you put it straight up and down, check the chain for kinks, and then you give it a pull. Referee, you need to step over the chain and look into the chain and the ball directly from the side so that you don't block TV's angle and you can make a good judgment instead of standing over the ball and looking directly down. Now, let's look at the impact of pulling that chain at an angle. You can see when you look at it, because he had it at an angle, the swivel slid to the bottom. When he put it back on the ground, the swivel was pointing backwards and sitting on top of the chain, resulting in the chain being about 4 inches short, which would have made a difference in this call. So, with the theme being pay attention, we need to pay attention to our mechanics and our penalty enforcement. This is a great situation where that would pay off if we did everything mechanically accurately. Play number 18, another challenging punt play. And it just seems that punts and kicks always bring us challenges. But on this punt play, you can see, and I'm going to highlight the return man, he gives a signal over his head 2 times. 1, 2. I'm going to reverse it, come back, 1, 2 again. Then he recovers the ball at the 21-yard line. That's it. Play over. He gave a signal. He caught the ball after a bounce. Plays over. Put the ball at the 21.
There are 2 fouls on the play by the return team. Invalid fair catch signal. That penalty is declined. Personal foul, illegal blindside block. Number 2, 15-yard penalty. Half the distance to the goal. First down, St. Louis.
So good announcement. Unfortunately, it's full of holes. The blindside block, that's good. I mean, the guy came in and forcefully initiated with his chest or shoulder. It also could be a block in the back, although a blindside block is 15 yards, so that would be the one they accepted. But they announced that he gave an invalid signal. Whether you give a valid signal or invalid signal, the play will be over when the receiver catches the ball, so this blindside block should never have occurred. If there was an invalid signal and he took off running, it should be whistled dead immediately and enforce the invalid signal and the dead ball for delay of game. But in this case, that signal was valid, and it should have just killed the play, and then we shouldn't have had to worry about this. But we did eventually figure it out, and we did not enforce the invalid signal, fortunately, because the signal was valid. And then we did enforce the dead ball personal foul for illegal blindside block during the return, which never should have happened, which is proper enforcement. If you have a dead ball foul during a period when we should not even be live, the 15s will be enforced as dead ball fouls, even though it's during presumed live ball action. Anything less than a 15 would not be enforced at all. Play 19 in our last play of the day is illegal man downfield. You can see the right guard does a pull and goes to the second level to initiate a block. If he initiates contact with the lineman by the 19-yard line, he can push as far as the 18, but he does not. He goes straight to the second level. The umpire looks here, identifies that he's beyond where he's allowed to be. If the quarterback still has the ball or is in the process of throwing, he will have a foul if a legal forward pass crosses the line of scrimmage. So we call that having one in the bank. So if he has one in the bank and then the quarterback does throw the ball beyond the line of scrimmage legally, then we do have a foul for illegal man downfield, correctly called in this situation, and a nice job by the umpire of processing the mechanic involved in that play.
Illegal man downfield, 5-yard penalty, repeat second down.
That's it, gang, and the best thing that can happen this weekend is for everybody to leave the stadium saying what great football games they saw. We don't want them talking about us, and the way that we can prevent them talking about us is if we pay attention. That's our theme. Pay attention to enforcements, pay attention to mechanics. Everything else after that will fall into place. It's been an honor and a privilege helping guide you through this tournament, and I wish you all the best of luck and the best of health throughout the coming season.